Good evening, everyone. Hope you all had a good day. Hope everything is going well. I wish my thing wasn't. Hang on, guys. Come on, work with me. I didn't move you. Is that better? I think that's better. Hi, good evening, and welcome. I hope everyone had a good day, or at least the day is over, and so it's a good time to chill and relax. Um, nothing too serious, nothing too stressful. This one should be spoiler free. Um, it's extra spoiler free because so this was on my have not read list, and it was on in my bookshelf and in my oh, I haven't read this yet. I meant to read it. I've bought it. Clearly I'm going to read it. It was interesting when I bought it. Um so a lot of those I don't actually read um the dust jackets or like the backs of the book. I just pull them out, like eyeball the cover, eyeball the title, and be like, yeah, no, this one will work. And read it. It's a very um, scientific method, well thought out way to select books. Um, so like the eighth word is whales in the dust jacket, and it took me a embarrassingly long time to realize this is Welsh. um, but I figured it out on my own, and then I went back afterward and was like, how come like all of the because when I'm looking things up, I'm like, why are all the reviews like, oh, it's great? Like, how do all of them know it's Welsh mythology? Like, this is not a super common mythology for people to just know. And it's like, oh, because the author told you if you paid any attention. Yeah, no, that flew right over my head for this one. Um, but this one should be really fun, really chill, should be spoiler free. Um, I do have fewer recommendations on this one, but that's not be a flaw of the book. It falls into that weird liminal space of I haven't read a ton of books like it because it's not wholly a genre that I enjoy. But I'll get into that. Um, is the volume good? I think it's okay. Can you hear me all right? I think you can. Um, so yeah, if we want to get into this, here we go. Ta-da! Once again, this is meant to entertain and inform. I do not hold any of the copyright to the works. I once again, so disclaimer, right? A disclaimer right after this disclaimer. I couldn't find an illustrator again. I was able to find a UK cover, but I was not able to find who the UK illustrator is, which is a little disappointing because I would love to give them credit and I really like their cover. Um, but if anyone owns a copy of the UK version, um, and would like to tell me who the illustrator is, that would be really cool. Because like I said, I really enjoyed the UK cover. I don't have that cover, so I can't check the copyright page and just or the dust jacket and have it tell me, because my dust jacket will tell me who did my cover. I say this. Let me see. Yeah, no. My dust jacket only tells me who did my dust jacket art, which makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Alright, so let's get on with this. Let's see where my mouse has decided to go. There we go. We are talking about The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd Jones. So, right off the bat, before we go into this, this is a strange paced book. It's fairly steady, but at times that's to its benefit, and at times it's to its detriment. With one exception, it's a pretty easy read, and I will admit by about the third chapter, I just sort of started skimming. I'll get into that too. Not skimming the book, skimming something else. It was published in 2022 by Little Brown and Company, and it is not part of a series. She does have another book. Oh, hang on. The Bone Houses. That is also Welsh myths, but it's not directly the same world, I don't believe. I don't think they intersect. So not technically a series, but she does have multiple books about Welsh myth. The original cover is by Spider Money. I cannot pronounce their name, but that is what it is. I am very happy they go by Spider Money, because I can say that. They are an illustrator from Bangkok, Thailand, who specializes in stippling, which is shading with teeny tiny dots. And then looking at a lot of their art and a few interviews they did, they have started going into the, like, I want to say it's Victorian, but it may be Edwardian. Anyway, the like flourishes and the florals and stuff, as you can see around the W and Drowned and stuff like that. So that has been a newer addition to what they do. It's gorgeous. I love it. Like if you look at their art, a lot of it is the stippling, the shading with teeny tiny dots. It's really impressive and gives a really nice look and variation. It's one of those things that, you don't necessarily know it from a distance. You look at it and you go, oh, that looks really good and a little different than usual. And then you get up on it and you're like, oh, that is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of teeny tiny dots to make that shadow. It's a really cool technique. It's really fun. This is the UK cover. This is the 2022 Hodder and Stoughton UK cover. I desperately would love to know who did the art for this, because it is a very different art style. But it is gorgeous. I could not find an artist. I looked all over the place, and basically what I have discovered through doing all of these is that most places don't list who their illustrators are. And it's really frustrating because I want to give them credit, because let's be real, like, oh, don't judge a book by its cover. Absolutely judge a book by its cover, because that's the first thing you're going to see. That's the pretty paper that wraps it all up. It doesn't necessarily mean the guts are going to be good, but it's likely going to be what makes you pick up the book. So I would love to give credit to the illustrators that make them so interesting. So yes, if anybody knows who the illustrator is for this cover, let me know. I would love to know who the illustrator is. I do know it is the UK cover. So this is a new book, so 2022, so it hasn't yet gotten a additional print cover. So so far, these are the two. About the author, why didn't I put her name on this slide? I am a terrible human being. Hang on. So Emily Lloyd Jones is the author. She has a bachelor's in English and a master's in publishing. She has written The Bone Houses, which is the other Welsh mythology one, Elusive, which is another heist novel, and Unseen Magic, which is a middle grade novel. Both The Bone Houses and Illusion are young adult, so, and I'll say this, I never know where the split is. Like, it used to be children's, teens, and young adults, and now it's children's middle zone, and then some people call young adult teens, and some people have teens separate from young adult, and some people roll young adult into middle zone. She says it's a middle fiction, so I'm going to go with what the author has called it, which is a middle fiction, and Unseen Magic is just intended for a younger age group than the others. I will say there's not a lot in the Drowned Woods that would be problematic, like some violence and some death. But that's about it. And it's a fantasy novel, and that's, like, kind of normal. Nothing is super grody. So what you need to know is that it is based around Welsh mythology. It is a heist novel. It has fun old magic, and the dog doesn't die. That seems like a very arbitrary comment on top of the others, but as someone who grew up reading horse books, and, like, in roughly 80% of them, the horse dies, and then reading literature for school, things like Shiloh, Where the Red Fern Grows, Old Yeller. It's like, oh, the dog dies. So here's a book. It has a dog. The dog doesn't die. The dog is actually really cute. So your main character is Mare. And this is the beginning of the end for me and my ability to speak about the characters in this book. I can handle Mare. She's a runaway water diviner, which is the term for a magic user who is born into their magic. She's very confident in her own abilities and limitations, but has trust issues of people in general and the world at large. Like, they're justified, but they exist, and they weave through everything she does and everything she involves herself in. There's this undercurrent of, yeah, that's all great, but I can't actually trust you because, like, people are awful, or things like that. She is impressive in her abilities. I'll get into this a bit when I talk about the magic. But it is a impressive scope of abilities. Alright, so this is Welsh mythology. Once again, read your jackets, read your back covers of your books. I highly recommend it. Check for glossaries. All these things that I mentioned when I talked about Ballad and Dagger. Once again, this would have saved me a lot of pain. I figured out because Aran was mentioned, and then they started talking about so they mentioned King Aran, and then they started talking about hang on, I gotta find, oh gosh, see, I didn't write these names down. I'm like, I'll remember. Anwen. They started talking about Anwen being the magical otherworld forest that the non-human fairy type people live in. And I say fairy type because we run into the problem of I do not speak Welsh. Um, there's a lot of L's and A's and Y's in places that just trip me up and I do not know how to pronounce. Um, I'm very thankful that, like, Mare and Fane are both very easy to pronounce. Renfew is very easy to pronounce. Um, but then you get, like, place names and it's got, like, three Y's in it and it's YS. And I'm like, is this like Isolde? Is that how this is pronounced? Probably, but I am not confident in the Welsh language, so I get care, Caer. I can get that one. Thank you, Narnia. But beyond that, I run into a pronunciation problem, and I'm just like, this collection of letters, that's the prince. This collection of letters, that's a place. It's really bad of me. I really should be better at it, but I just don't know the language. And to attempt to not mutilate said language, I am not going to give the names of the places. I will say, Welsh mythology is like the weird kid in Celtic mythology in a strange way, because the way the British Isles and their mythology is so intertwined. A lot of Celtic myth has overlap, but a lot of Welsh mythology is like the progenitor of some English mythology. And you're like, oh, they took that like whole cloth and changed some names so that there were less Y's in them, and that's where that came from. It's there are concepts about the other world that come from Welsh myth. And then there's things that just exist in all of Celtic mythology. You've all got water horses. You've all got otherworldly beings that are some that are helpful, some that are just you leave them alone and they leave you alone, and everyone's good with that. You've got the concept of someone being born touched by the other world for no reason than their own whimsy. And so all of that is incorporated in this. I will also admit this book did not take a lot of hard turns. There were a few gentle ones at the very end. But it did not take a lot of hard turns, and it took me a long time to realize part of the reason that I'm like, yeah, no, of course this is how this is going, is because I am familiar with some Celtic myths and also with some other novels that are based in Welsh mythology. So these were not wholly new to me. If you were familiar with Welsh mythology, or with novels that are based on Welsh mythology, not just books that like borrow a couple of things, but things that actually borrow a lot. And I will talk about that in a bit. Then this book, it will not be surprising. It will be almost familiar in a good way. And like I said, it's not a hard read. It's really comfy. But it does run into one big problem for me, and that is that it's a heist. Look, I have nothing against a good thief character, but like, if the point of your novel and or movie is a heist, the odds are it's not my idea of a good time. That's just not what I enjoy. A lot of this book is putting the crew together and meeting your characters. You've got multiple points of view. You've got some flashbacks. You've got some flash sideways for a couple of people. Um, your timeline is pretty straightforward. There at the end, there are some flashbacks that are like, oh, we're doing this now. It's a slower pace than most of the books I've talked about. Like even The Assassin's Apprentice. While that one started out like glacially slow, once you know kicked the snowball a few times, it picked up speed and took off. This one was not like that. This one started out at a pretty good walk, fast enough to be interesting, slow enough for you to keep up, and basically kept that pace through the whole novel. Not a detriment, but not not really how modern books are written. I say that because there are older series that I'm going to bring up later, that are written like that do exist at like one pace. And no, it's not just Tolkien. His has a pacing for a different reason. But this book in particular, the pacing is steady, but it is not fast. There are action scenes in this that they don't feel like cinematic action scenes. They feel like sitting in a lecture hall hearing about the action scenes. The actions are still interesting, but it's like one layer removed. It is fun old magics. This is where I get to talk about how this magic is really fun, and I really enjoyed it. It is a very old world magic system. There are hard limits on it, your primary one being iron. Salt is a fun secondary, in that salt is not another absolute nullifier. It makes things a little hard, but not like impossible. It's not that kind of hard line for the magic. Iron is a hard line. If there is a very early on, there's someone who has iron thread in their gloves, and when they close their hands around someone, around Mare, I don't know why I'm hiding this fact. When they close their hands around Mare's wrists, it cuts off her ability to access her magic. That kind of old magic. But the other thing is that as a water diviner, she is able to sense water. And that sounds very basic until you realize that water is everywhere. So, like, oh, there's a little bit of water in the air. There's water in wood, whether living or dead. There's water in the ground. There's water everywhere. There is another character who has borrowed magic that deals with iron, and he was magicked by the fair folk to get iron out of their world, because iron is bad for magic. And one of his comments very early on is, "Oh yeah, you know what has iron? Blood, people, humans." It's like, oh, that's a problem. So like he can sense people because of the iron in their blood, as well as just worked iron and raw iron. And it's very interesting, because that is such a broad stroke of, oh yes, you can sense iron, people have iron. Like, it's a known quantity. Like, modern day, we know this. It absolutely makes sense, but it's not something you normally think of when you're thinking of things that would affect ye old magic. So that's a lot of fun. Um, it is a very fun magic system, even though you see you see a lot of a limited type of magic. There is a in-story um, reason for that, but it is a broad spectrum of basically a single type of magic. The dog doesn't die. There is a very adorable corgi. He does not die. I can try to pronounce his name. Let's find his name and see if I can pronounce his name. Let's see. Trefor? Trefor? See, this is part of my problem. I don't know where the accents go. Let's do a quick Google foo. Let's see where these accents go. Hello. Let's see how to pronounce name. Trever? Trefor? How do you pronounce the Welsh? Oh gosh, I cannot read that. I am sure this is phonetic, but they are not my phonics. Let's see. Welsh name. Trevor. Oh my gosh. The dog's name is Trevor. That took way too long and way too much panic for me to figure out the dog's name is Trevor. Oh no. This probably means I've been pronouncing everyone's name wrong. For the record, Trevor. Trefor. Trevor. Oh dear. He's very cute. A lot of people are like, "Oh, he's a spy for the other folk," and it's like, yeah, that's fine. Who cares? He's a cute corgi. He likes chewing on boots, and he sneezes whenever magic is around. So like, cute dog doesn't die. He's also kind of he's one of those characters that shows up and you adore him because he exists and he takes up space in the world, but he doesn't steal space from anybody else. And it's very much a, hi, I exist. Aren't I cute? And you're like, yes. Like, I am not a dog person. I am a cat person. But I loved this corgi and like would have been very sad if he died. Trevor. All right, Trevor. No, I finally found a pronunciation that said rhymes with clever, and I'm like, oh, right. So here are some recommendations for Welsh mythology. One of these is much newer than the others. The Raven Boys, which is the first book in the Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater, is a lot of fun. It's these like very preppy schoolboys who go to Aglenby Academy, and they are how do you explain those boys? Uh, they are bored, so they get into old magic and mythology and stuff. And then one of the main characters in that book is the girl who is like from a long line of fortune tellers. Like, my gut goes to witches, but I think they're all fortune tellers, and they tell fortunes in different ways. I haven't read that one in a few years. I did really enjoy it. These other two are probably the reason that the Drowned Woods felt so familiar. The modern aspects of the Drowned Woods definitely from the Raven Boys, but the Book of Three by Lloyd Alexander and Oversea Under Stone by Susan Cooper are both much older, and pacing is weird. I'm actually going to talk about these in the opposite order. So I have mentioned the series that Oversea and Understone belongs to before. This is not my favorite book in the series. I would start with book 2, but out of fairness, this is book 1 in the Dark is Rising sequence. The pacing is very slow in this book. It is not my cup of tea at all. It follows a bunch of kids on a holiday. That's the easiest way to explain it. But it is a slow read. It is a steady read. Once again, there is no big, snowball effect. It's pretty steady. The Book of Three by Lloyd Alexander. If you are not aware of these books, you should be. You should read them. I highly recommend them, even though the last book makes me cry. It is... I say the Chronicles of Pydron. That's probably wrong because it's Welsh. Prydain? Don't quote me on my pronunciation of Welsh names. Clearly I don't recognize the Welsh spelling of Trevor. The Book of Three is the first book. You may be familiar with this because the Black Cauldron is in this series. And Elenwy and Taryn. It is a wonderful series. It builds well. It is very slow, but each book has more of a traditional 3-act structure. But it does build a larger structure with each book. This first one feels very much like setting your foundation. It is not the most exciting by far, but you get some good spooky evil things. You meet a lot of your cast. You get Henwin. It's a good steady opening for a series that is exceptionally written. You've probably seen The High King if you've ever been to the children's section of a local library, because it is a... Oh, I'm gonna get this wrong. I think it's a Newbery Award winner, not a runner-up. Let me double check. Let's see. The High King. Not the band. Not Skyrim. You can tell what I do in my spare time. Let's see. The High King. It is the Newbery Award winner. So yeah, it is very good. That one makes me cry. But the Book of Three, uh, I'm a fan of Lear, but these three books are the reason that the Drowned Woods felt so familiar. Um, so highly recommend all three of them. Now, if we're talking about fun old magic, welcome to three of my go-tos for magic. um, the first is Terrier by Tamora Pierce. I so far I don't think I've had a stream where Tamora Pierce hasn't shown up somehow. But I specifically chose Terrier because it is another detective-y book in that you are following a member of the Lord Provost's Guard, so a police officer, a baby one, a brand new one. And her magic has to do with the dead. So, not exactly your normal brand of magic. Stealing the Elf King's Roses has another talking dog by Diane Duane. Stealing the Elf King's Roses by Diane Duane has another talking dog. It is set in the future, where science and magic are basically one and the same. The dog is a coworker of the other main character. I want to say they are also police officers. It deals with how to explain this without giving it all away. There is a concept in fantasy and mythology about a prime world and derivative worlds. I guess it's sort of a multi-worlds theory. And the further away from the prime world you get, the less like it is. That is what the basic premise is running off of, is how close to that original world can you get, and then when things go wrong in the outer worlds, where did they start going wrong? And did they start going wrong at the very beginning? And the general premise is things have started going wrong. We need to figure out where the wrong happened. So that is the vague basis for that. It is a bit trippy. So if you like your science fantasy, that one's absolutely for you. Just be aware it does have a multi-worlds feel to it. And then this one, I swear it's not a gimmick. But The Lost Years of Merlin is in here because a lot of it deals with names. But there are a lot of fun things in it. Things like, if you know the name of a thing, you can turn into a thing. You've got rocks that eat people, which doesn't sound fun, but it's a thing. It also borrows heavily from folklore, because Merlin. It's basically a really good time. I greatly enjoy it. So yeah, those are my recommendations. Only 6 this time, in addition to the Drowned Woods. I will say, I found the name of the novel to be a bit of a misnomer. Like, it's not wrong, but it's also like not obvious. Or maybe I'm exceptionally blind when it came to this novel. Maybe I'm really dumb. Like, I didn't read the jacket properly and missed the whole fact that it flat out tells you it's Welsh mythology because it says so right there on the jacket. That could be a thing. but it didn't immediately scream. Like, there was never a point where I got the ding roll credits, here's why it's named that moment. It's weird. Like, not bad weird, just, like, weird. Because, like I said, the pacing is unusual. It's a pretty steady go. And I don't have a great comparison. Because it isn't slow because of extraneous descriptors. It's slow because the action is slow. The time period it takes place over, excluding flashbacks, is a relatively small time period. So it kind of draws it out, but is reasonable about it. Because, like, they're on a timeline. It's a heist. There's a crunch. Oh, excuse me. But at no point in this did you go, oh, it's a heist. They need to be doing things so much faster. It's like, no, it's fast enough for a heist, but it's slow for a story. So your point of view flips primarily as you get a new member of the crew. It starts out from Mare's point of view, and then when Fane comes into the picture, you get some bits from his point of view, you get some of his backstory. And that's another thing. Is that, oh gosh, my mouth is not, oh, hang on, let me see if I can fix that. Hey, buddy. Is that better? That looks better. One of the things is that you, the reader, know the backstory before the other characters do. So it's very much made clear, here's why Fane is acting this way. Here's why Trevor is there. I'm a little annoyed that the dog's name is Trevor, and I just got used to being like, the T name is the dog. But you know the backstories and why people are doing things before the other characters do. I think there's one exception. There's one exception to that, and that is when your thief joins the heist. Hang on. Oh gosh. Can I pronounce her name? Probably not. It's got a bunch of L's in it. Where is it? Oh, no, it doesn't. It's just like 14 words long. You know what? Before I try to pronounce this, let's just Google the pronunciation. Let's be as nice and polite and careful about this as we can. How do I pronounce the name? Not Trevor, which apparently is just me being dumb. Learn how to pronounce. Oh. Well, that's ways to make me feel silly in one easy step. It's Ivana. I think. Ivana? Jeez Louise. This name. I am bad at Welsh. Can you just... No? Okay. I don't need the horoscope for the name. I just would like a pronunciation. I'm pretty sure it's Ivana now, having read that and seeing how the F was a V in Trevor. So, Ivana. See, this is the problem. I go to look up how to pronounce things and I lose track of what I'm doing. Oh, there is a moment where you don't know why she's done a thing before she tells Mare. So that's one of the instances where it's like, oh, here's all these people and we're telling you about things beforehand except this one girl because reasons. Also, this is the second YA novel where we've just sidestepped the relationship. And in this case, like, I get it, but also really because Mare and Ivana were a thing before stuff happened, and you're like, cool, this is great and sweet, and like this is why there's a lot of tension between the two of them, but also it's like, but what if they didn't? why no happy endings? I will say The Drowned Woods does line up with all of the other Welsh books, books on Welsh, based on Welsh mythology that I've read, in that it made me cry. Not as much as The High King does. Not as much as the Dark is Rising sequence does, but it did make me cry. To be fair, that doesn't take much. I'll cry at a commercial. I had a lot of fun with this one. Like I said, it was kind of nice to figure out that it was Welsh mythology. Like I said, it wasn't hidden. The names were there. I just was dumb. It's nice to see it. It is it's the Celtic folklore that you don't normally see a lot of. Like I said, you'll see Irish mythology, you'll see Scottish mythology, you'll see English mythology, and then it's like, oh yeah, Wales. You know, where a lot of the fairy stories actually come from. A lot of your English fairy stories have their roots in Wales. Not all of them, but a lot. And then they share a lot of stories with Scotland and Ireland, but they're distinct and different. Like I said, all three countries have water horses, but the Welsh ones are basically just bad. The others have layers of sometimes they're bad and sometimes they're not. But so it's really interesting seeing the mythology. Welsh mythology has girls turning into birds again, but I think they're seagulls. I feel like that is the Welsh myth. There's So you've got the Children of Lear, which is the kiddos get turned into swans and have to spend 12 years on every lock. That seems excessive, but also like right for a fairy tale. And that is swans, but I feel like Wales had seagulls. But yeah, again, children get turned into birds. um and you don't have, like, the Welsh heroes are different, obviously. Um so while a lot of your fairy stories may be similar, like Aran is specifically Welsh. Um, his kingdom and his otherworld are distinct from the otherworlds of Ireland and Scotland. Um, Several of your like Arthurian legends have some roots in Wales. Not all of them. Some of them are, you know, French. um, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, I do feel bad now looking back at it, going, I could have Googled all of these pronunciations, but at the time I was reading, it's like I didn't want to sit and pull out my phone for every single pronunciation, because it would have been just about every single place name. Um, because I look at them and I do not know the grammar that goes behind them. I am familiar with the fact that most of the language is phonetic, but I don't know the phonics. Like I said, it's phonetic, but it's not my phonics. Um, it's not like, well, like I know how to pronounce the Children of Lear because I know that myth. I found that myth interesting. It lines up with the not ideal, not perfectly, but it lines up with like the Japanese Swan Maiden tales, which more closely resemble the tales of Selkies, but Swan Maidens. Um, Made me think of the Children of Lear, and so because I was interested in that specifically, I learned that pronunciation. Um, and that's how a lot of my reading goes, is if I read a thing and then I become interested in it, I'm like, how does this connect to other things? And with mythology, they connect a lot. Most of your people groups have a either stolen child or a missing child or a taken child, or um, let's be real, in a lot of those myths, the children are given away and the fair folk are blamed. Um, and it was an excuse of, oh, my kid doesn't exist anymore because the fairies took him. It's like, did the fairies take your kid? Did you give your kid away? Did you like Hansel and Gretel this and like throw your kids in the woods? What happened to your child? um, but it's a I can't say it's global because I don't know every mythology ever, but it is prevalent through many mythologies that there is a stolen child myth. Um, you get a lot of myths uh, where it's be nice to strangers. Like, a lot of them are like really old versions of stranger danger, but at the same time, it's like, oh, if you're nice, if you're polite, if you're not a jerk, um, sometimes the good thing is you don't get cursed. Like, sometimes the bar is really low for what do you get out of being polite. Um, if we're gonna talk about fun spins on those old stories, there is a. Okay, hang on. Let me get the right name. Nope, that's the wrong author. Who retold that? Lots of people, but who am I thinking of? Gail Carson Levine. That's who I'm thinking of. We're just gonna ignore the fact that I just forgot the name of one of my favorite authors. She wrote fairy stories, princess tales, um, that were retellings of these old fairy tales and how would they actually be. And there's a very old, very simple fairy tale that is um, a girl goes to the well and an old lady says, "Hey, I'm thirsty." And look, I'm paraphrasing. Um, and the first girl draws up the bucket of water and offers her a drink from the ladle, and the old woman's like, "Oh, thank you so much. You'll be blessed. The every word that falls from your lip will be a jewel," something along that lines. And like, girl thanks her and goes on with life and is like, "That was a sweet old lady." And then the next day, she wakes up and she can talk. Well, she can't talk. She could talk before. But when she speaks, jewels fall out of her mouth. And her mother and sister are like, "You know, it would be great. Two girls who could do this. We would be rich." So mom tells sister, "Go to the well. Find whoever did this and get blessed." And so she goes to the well and draws a bucket of water, and the old woman is there and it's like, "Hey, I'm thirsty." And she's like, "Go away, I'm waiting for a powerful fairy to bless me," and blah blah blah. And she's like, "Well, you're getting cursed, and spiders and toads are gonna come out of your mouth whenever you talk." And then the old woman poofs away, and the job is done. The old woman is out of this story. And so in the actual fairy tale ends with a prince riding in and marrying Little Miss, I got jewels falling out of my mouth because I'm so nice and kind and sweet. And it's like, oh, what a good, happy ending. If you're nice and give the old ladies a drink, you know, good things happen. If you're a jerk, bad things happen. Like, this is a very basic fairy tale. Very formulaic, very basic. Gail Carson Levine's retelling is... so what if the prince was just as much of a jerk as the mom, and he married her so that he could stick her in a library and have her read books aloud, with a treasure chest on her lap, so that all of the jewels from all of the words that she's reading fall into the treasure chest. And like, how is that for her? And it's like, well, very slowly she loses her voice because she's reading out loud every single day from like massive books. And like, Gail Carson Levine is really clever because she's like, they're not even interesting books. I'm like, of course they're not interesting books. This prince literally married her so he could get richer. He's not going to give her interesting books to read. That would be nice. But it's like at one point, it's like they're tiny little seed pearls falling out of her mouth because she has no voice. And she's like, she's losing her voice and she's super sick. And like, all the prince cares about is, why aren't you reading? Like, I married you because you could get me free jewels. Why are you not getting me free jewels? Meanwhile, the mom and the mean sister are doing like gambling den illegal betting on spiders and toads in races, and they are making bank because they can just make more, and they figured out that the louder she yells the bigger the critter is. So um yeah, they're doing fine actually. They're great entrepreneurs of spider and toad races. But it very much, it turns this like very straightforward be nice fairy tale, and it's like, let's take this fairy tale past this happy ending. How would this really turn out? Um what if the prince is not a good guy? What would that look like? And it's like, well, it would look like a very greedy man not caring about the woman he married for money. That's what that would look like. But I enjoy the fairy stories like that. They're very simple little stories, and then someone comes along and either turns them completely on their head or just does a little twist on it. Like I said, that's a short story in a collection of short stories. And like half of it is the actual myth. Like that's not a, like, it's a retelling of the myth, but it's not a re-examining of it. There's no deep let's change this up. No. The first half of that is literally just, and here's the fairy tale. Hey, I'm glad you made it. We're talking about Welsh mythology and fairy tales, and how everyone forgets Wales, and I apparently can't pronounce Trevor when it's spelled the way the Welsh people write the name Trevor. Um, yeah, I feel a little bad about that. We're gonna ignore the fact that the dog's name is Trevor. Look, I found out that the Welsh F is sometimes pronounced as a V, and therefore the dog's name was Trevor. Um, but yeah, like, retellings of myths are fine. Uh, yeah, uh-huh. Tell me how I was supposed to know this. Like, ask me what I know about the Welsh language, and it's the fact that it's most likely phonetic, but I don't know the phonics, and that there's a lot of L's and Y's. And you look at it and you go, I don't know. Um, but yeah, so a lot of those basic fairy tales exist almost universally. Um, if not exactly. So, like I said, to me, the Children of Lear lines up with the Swan Maidens because swans. But the Swan Maidens line up better with Selkies, because both of them are. Actually, it depends on the Selkie tale, now that I've said that. Because most of the Swan Maiden stories are hunter sees swans turn into really pretty girls, goes home and tells mom the swan girls are super pretty, and mom is like, so steal the feather cloak and you get the girl. A lot of the Selkie myths do not involve whining to mom. um, and most of the Selkie myths are just, and I just stole the sealskin because I wanted a wife. That is how most of the Selkie myths go. And then both of those have the fun problem of hide the cloak from your wife because she will be angry. And neither seals nor swans are animals you want angry with you. Because they are both very dangerous. They don't look it, they are. don't remember what I was doing the other day. Someone was like, seals have the best PR team. It's like, it's very true. Like, a lot of people know that swans are dangerous. Seals, also dangerous. But we just look at them and we're like, haha, cute seals. Those things. So, yeah. I'll be honest. My knowledge of Welsh mythology is very limited. It is limited to the books I mentioned earlier, and to my curiosity. Um, when crossover happens, or if I encounter a myth where I'm just like, that name is weird, and I'm like, what is it? And not always, but many times I'm like, oh, this name in this British myth is weird because it's Welsh. That probably means there's a Welsh myth that this came from, and that just got like stolen whole cloth, and they managed to change everybody's name except for the bad guys, because that's usually how it goes. It's either the bad guy or the princess. One of those is unpronounceable, and it's because it's not in its language of origin. um oh so oh, they very much put the wee in weird, um which is like, on the one hand that's not fair. On the other hand, it's like, the rest of the mythology of the British Isles has a better PR team. Like, real talk. Wales is on my radar because it is a very basic, like, librarian question. Is where are the books about Wales? And you have to determine, are they talking about like the animal, the place, the mythology, or do they want science books? Do they want, you know, storybooks about Wales? Do they want picture books? Do they want travel things? Like, that's why Wales has forever been stuck in my brain. Um, like, yes, the Chronicles of Pydron are based off of Welsh myths, but again, there's this like weird Y in it. Yeah, Wales, near Wales, yes, but like there's a weird Y in it, so I knew it was a language that I wasn't familiar with. Um, I don't think I looked it up as a kid. I just accepted, like, I don't, there's a Y in this for some reason. I mean, let's go Ys. I will blame those books for the weird phase I had where I was like writing stories and throwing Ys into people's names because I'm like, this is cool. No, no, no. Fire does not need to be spelled with a Y. Um, um, but yeah, it wasn't until more recently that I started actively going, oh yeah, this is Welsh mythology. Um, a bit of fun future knowledge for the next upcoming weeks. I am going to start spooky season next time. Um, with not a very spooky book. I am not a scary person. I don't like scary. Um, but eerie is fine. And that is what this first one is going to be. So, from next time. So I've got to get a desk calendar, if only for my poor like dumb brain. Hang on. I swear I look this up every time. Just give me a calendar. That I love it. So from September 20th to November 1st, those will all be spooky, and then I'm going to start a holiday theme. I have all of the spooky ones lined up. I know what I'm doing for spooky season. Um, when we get to the holiday ones, I have some of them lined up. Cause there's a handful that I'm like, I don't want to burn all of my absolute favorites. Uh, but there are some that I desperately want to do. Um, for spooky season, none of them should be super scary because I'm reading them. Um, all of them are rereads for me. All of them? Yes, all of them are rereads for me. One of them is a book that I keep like recommending in like every other one of these I do. So I will in fact cover that one on its own. It will have its own whole discussion. Um, I will try to do these spoiler free because they are spooky and that is part of the spooks. Two of them are children's books, and what I have learned through this is that the younger the audience of the book, the harder it is to do spoiler free. And one of those is a book that I absolutely adore. So when we get to those, they might have spoilers in them. I will change the description on those, like I have for the past few weeks, to change them to slightly spoilery instead of spoiler free, because like I said, I don't think I can be completely spoiler free on the children's books. Especially the one I love, because I just want to talk about it. Let's be real, I just want to talk about the book that I adore. Um, so that's how that's going to go. So as it stands right now, it's going to be an adult book, a children's book, an adult book, a children's book. The first children's book skews older than the second one. Um, I like both of them. I will say that the last one I'm doing, the one I'm doing on November 1st, um, is one that I would argue everyone should read. Like I know books are very subjective. I know that not everybody likes every book. It's not for everyone. That is one of those books that I'm like, you need to read it. Um, I don't think I've. It's not one that I've shoved down my friends' throats. Because it is a children's book. But it is one that I will say everyone should read it. It's a good book. Um, and since I get to talk about and read the books I want to, we're doing that one. Um, so that is the upcoming plan, is that we will be doing 4 spooky books, and then we will get into holiday books. Um, So the holiday books are going to be they aren't all planned out yet. I have a few, but I need to decide which ones I'm actually doing. Um, the other thing is that I can't um because I'm doing so. How do I explain this without giving away which ones they are? Uh, some of the ones I'm doing overlap. And I don't want to do all of them. Uh, because they get a little samey. So I'm going to have to make a decision and possibly go find new books, which feels like a mad thing to do. Um, when I've got a ton. But yeah, that is the immediate plans. Um, so there will be some tangents about mythological creatures because spooky season has creature season. Um, but not a lot of specific mythology. Um, if you're easily scared, again, not a problem. I am a coward, so nothing super scary. Spooky vibes, not actual spooks. Um, you missed the part where I ranted about you are allowed to judge books by their covers. Uh because that's part of why you pick up a book. I would argue actually a very good cover and a very bad cover can equally be beneficial. But a very neutral cover is less good. Um, yeah, so I have a friend who um, doesn't like when the book Under the Dust Jacket is boring. Because it's boring. Um, and I kind of get that point. If you're never gonna have it in the dust jacket, then yeah, it would be nice for the book to be interesting looking. Um, and by that token, having an interesting cover is a good way to get your book picked up. I mean, if you're smarter than me and you actually read the dust jacket, uh, I already bought the book. In my defense, I already owned this book and I didn't read the dust jacket. Um, but the cover should get you to pick the book up. It doesn't mean it's a perfect representation of what is in the book, but if it gets you to pick the book up and read it and read the blurb, the cover's done its job. Um, there are some very interesting covers of the Dune books uh, that I will never read. I have no interest in Dune, but those covers are really pretty, and I can absolutely see how a nice cover could get someone into Dune. I have the advantage, foresight, of having family members who enjoy Dune and have told me about it, and I'm like, no, that is way too much uh, political maneuvering in my fantasy. I don't want it. Even though it's science fantasy, no. Well, and that's kind of. I mean, isn't that the whole reason Barnes and Noble has those pretty books? Is just to get you to. Well, I would say to get you to buy them, but they sell them for like $20, and they're always super pretty. And you're like, why are they selling these pretty ones for like $20? And then it's like, oh right, um, because people aren't going to buy the boring ones that are like 7 on the shelves. I mean, maybe for Dracula, but also, like, if I remember correctly, Dracula has this, like, great black and red and silver cover. So absolutely buy the cool cover. Buy the cover you want. I will stand behind that all day long. I have books that I own that I sat around and waited for the cover that I wanted because I knew it existed, and I went book hunting for the cover I wanted. Or I've ordered the book online and I'm like, no, I ordered it for this cover. And then I reach out to the seller and they're like, well, we did say you're not guaranteed that cover. Yeah. Let me guess. You have the Barnes & Noble one for the Iliad and the Odyssey, and they're gorgeous, aren't they? Let me take a guess. Does one of them have the shield with the spears crossed? And the other one have a boat? I feel like that's what you've got. You've got one with a very pretty boat, and you've got one with, like, the shield and spears. Yeah, exactly. And you know what? They look good. And you bought them because they looked good. Yeah. No. That is exactly why... That is exactly why covers matter. That is why I get a little sad when I'm looking for the illustrators for these covers and I can't find them. And I'm like, but I want to give you credit. You make the book look interesting. Like, it's the preview for the book. You did all the work to get us to pick it up, and then it's the author's job to get us to read the darn thing. The illustrator's job is to get you to pick it up. That's just how that works. I think that's why when things were going through a very photorealistic phase a while back, it's like, oh, I don't like these covers as much, man. There for a while, like, everything was photorealistic, and I'm like, my fantasy novel needs more fantasy on it. It's like, stop giving me photorealism. Just give me fantasy. Give me the dragons. Give me the, like, crazy magic spell effects. Give me the dog, or do what Nyx did and give me Sabriel, Lyriel, and a Porson, and be like, hey, look, here's these 3 random people. Wonder who they are. I'm not gonna tell you. This one's got a cat. This one's got a dog. Figure it out yourself. Those original covers are just like, hey, you want to know anything about the book? Nah, here's a portrait. But he'll make you pick it up. They're so... those books were black bordered with either silver or gold lettering and that portrait. And yeah, you would pick it up because you're like, what? And then you read it and you figure out 2 of those are a name and 1 of those is a title. But again, they've done their job. Their job was to make you look at it. What I was looking for earlier was, I don't know who the illustrator was for the UK cover of The Drowned Wood. Let me... This cover. I don't know who the illustrator was for this cover, and I would desperately like to know because I really like it. So that was what kind of led to me being like, I would love to give the illustrators credit, because I know who the publisher is, but I can't find the illustrator because I can't see the, this isn't the copy I have, so I can't see the, copyright page. Yeah, exactly. It's a really nice cover. It's a really nice cover. So yes, credit your artists. That is a thing. Give your artists credit. Make it searchable so that I can give credit to the artists. This is like the third book now where I've been like, here's another cover, can't find the artist. And I always have this question of, when I encounter that, it's like, do I not include that cover? I can't credit the artist. So should I not include the cover at all? But I'm like, that's the UK cover. Like, if that's what is available near you, that's what you're gonna see. So seeing the other cover's not helpful. And as much as librarians and bookstores hate, oh, it was a blue cover, let's be real, sometimes that's what you remember. Like I said, I'm pretty sure the Barnes Noble's Dracula is a black book with silver and red lettering. I'm fairly certain that's what it looks like. And their Star Wars book is a black book with silver lettering. Because you remember the cover sometimes. And that's not a bad thing. Is it frustrating sometimes? Absolutely. It's like, oh, I forgot the name of this thing, but it had its cover. I have one of those. The problem is, I can remember bits of the plot, including the ending. But I don't remember the name. I don't remember the author. I know the copy I had was an old print. And it was a Magic School book. So, like, there's bazillions of them. It's not a new thing. So, like, good luck to me. If I ever stumble across that cover, I'll be like, this one's mine. It's like, I'm pretty sure it had bubbles on the cover that had people in them. And I remember how the book ends. But it's also like, I don't remember names. Yeah. So, I think I'm going to end it there for tonight. Fewer recommendations than usual, a lot more discussion on book covers and mythology. And you got a preview for the next 4 weeks. So, hope you have a good night, good rest of the week. You're halfway through the week. See you next time.